This video is indeed rated B for you'd better back on out of here if you don't want spoilers, buddy. If you could live a life without fear or pain, would you? On paper, it seems like a good deal. Most people who experience these sensations and the many forms they can take aren't fans. From minor cuts to massive bruises, just about everyone knows what it means to feel pain on some level. In fact, some people become so fearful that they do anything to avoid it, while others simply accept that it's a part of living. But while a life without those feelings and sensations may sound ideal, they can obscure a dark and sinister truth. Many doctors and scientists within our own reality have researched what it means to feel, along with studying our other senses across the centuries, ultimately reaching an unsettling discovery. People who could not feel pain for whatever reason, whether it be from a disability or disease, were often in much greater peril than those who could. Their mortality rates practically multiply, because now, a sense that would have normally warned them or made them hesitate is gone. Because pain does more than simply hurt, it informs. The entire reason a person tries to avoid fire is likely because they've been burned by a flame before. The experience created a memory, a fear, a warning, something that told said person to avoid such dangers if they ever arise again. Similar things can be said about emotional pains. Sometimes the entire reason a person can appreciate happiness is because they understand just how much worse it could be. In a weird way, sorrow can help to frame one's joy. And just like how physical feelings can inform us, emotional sadness can inspire empathy, an understanding that someone other than oneself could be in need of aid. So, what happens to a society that attempts to free themselves of these fears, these warnings, and of pain itself? Gather round, my friends, for today we'll be diving into the quiet horror that is the state of Alexandria as it's originally discovered within Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail, and how previous societies that reached similar positions were not only doomed, but had already failed. When Alexandria is first encountered in the story of Dawntrail, it's initially disarming to all the characters involved. The Warrior of Light, Scions, and all associated friends were expecting a fight. After all, it was Alexandria's invasion that inspired them to retaliate and invade the electric dome that had formed within Shaktural. So, being met with open arms by Queen Sphene and the people that were living there was odd, to say the least. Not only were they not getting the fight they were expecting, but everyone seemed relatively happy. Almost unusually so. It takes the story almost no time to reveal one of the biggest secrets to their joy: the regulators that each of them wears upon their head. And this is where the terror of Alexandrian society begins to truly dig its claws into those who notice the implications. These regulators weren't just making someone's life better, they are essentially enslaving souls and stealing memories, all in the name of blind happiness. But how are they doing this? Well, the process of gaining a regulator and letting it synchronize with your body and spirit provides a few benefits, the biggest one being the use of what they call soul cells. If someone were to perish in a sudden and unusual way, like being attacked by a monster or falling from a great height, the regulator would use one of these soul cells to revive the person from death, allowing them to recover from what would have been a fatal injury as if it were nothing. But how are soul cells obtained? Well, when someone attuned to a regulator perishes under the dome, their soul becomes forfeit. Normally, upon death, a soul is allowed to naturally return to the star's ethereal realm after life. It's here that the soul is cleansed before eventually returning to the living world at a later date. This is reincarnation, life and death in a never-ending dance, a never-ending cycle. It would not be incorrect to assert that souls are the very blood of life itself. But that's not so for Alexandria. If and when an Alexandrian spends their last life or passes on from old age, their memories and soul are stolen away by the Regulator. The ether that makes up their memories are stored like data in a computer, while the soul, the very essence of who that person was in the first place, is turned into a commodity. The power of a single soul is not to be underestimated, and as soul cells, they've the power to restore someone's life at a terrible cost. Normally, your spirit is allowed to rest after death, but in Alexandria, the soul is immediately put to work as a product for those who are still alive. Never allowed to rest, never allowed freedom. And without the natural cycle of souls throughout the land, life itself will eventually stagnate and decay. With spirits being used as extra lives by those living within Alexandria, one would expect many people to take offense to how the essence of their loved ones is being treated. But therein lies the rub. They've already become numb to that pain. They have no idea the danger they're truly in. As I said before, when someone with a regulator perishes, their memories and soul are partitioned and contained. But there's an additional effect. All memories of the deceased are wiped from the minds of everyone with a regulator, keeping the average citizen blissfully unaware of who they may have lost throughout their life. You may have loved a relative with all your heart and spent time with them in ways that changed your life for the better. But all of that disappears when the regulator steals those memories away from you. The living are spared the sorrow of knowing death, at the cost of all the joy they may have had in life. This is harrowing because it asserts that many horrific deaths could have occurred within Alexandria while their regulated citizens remain ignorant of all they may have lost. Entire branches of friends and family could disappear overnight, and they'd simply smile the next day as if nothing happened. In fact, they would never know that the very soul of someone they loved may now be in the hands of someone they don't even like, being used as a common item rather than getting the peace that death once offered. This is not a simple cultural difference. The system of Alexandria that the Warrior of Light discovers makes a mockery of life and toys with the minds of its people, all in the name of happiness, as Sphene would put it. The Scions eventually point out that the cannibalization of energy from souls for self-gain is no different than what the Voidsent do regularly. And seeing as the Warrior of Light has put a stop to almost every Voidsent problem they've encountered in their travels, it's not surprising to see that they insist that the use of souls in this way is fundamentally wrong. For example, when playing through the story of the new raid, Arcadian, the Warrior of Light is never given the option to agree with what they're doing, instead showing some level of disgust regardless of what choices are made within the dialogue, clearly establishing that the Warrior of Light as a person does not agree with what Alexandria's system is doing at all. And why would they? After all, Alexandria wouldn't be the first society they have encountered where the pleasures of day-to-day life came at a terrible price. Not long ago, during an adventure within the First Reflection, a country known as Yulmore was discovered, a place of luxuries and decadence that masked yet another sinister truth. While those living within Yulmore were able to spend their days in bliss as their world fell to ruin, such joys came at the expense of others and their own will. Their ruler, Vothri, was not only corrupt and self-absorbed, but he had been manipulated his entire life to do nothing more than be a thoughtless pawn. Eorzea was an example of the blind leading the blind, and it wasn't until all their finery was stripped away that its people were forced to accept that what they'd been doing this whole time was self-indulgent at best and unforgivably cruel at worst. At first, they were so drunk on their own pleasures that they never could accept the truth. Again, they had numbed themselves to the pain of those around them. This was a truth that Alexandria was slowly beginning to wake up to, only to find the fruits of reality bitter, making them eagerly seek refuge in a system they had long since given themselves to. However, most people would be shocked to learn that Alexandria shares more similarities with another culture than Eorzea. In fact, current-day Alexandria shares many stark similarities to the once grand Allagan Empire. Much like how the Alexandrians benefit from the advantages that Electrope provides, the Allagans once flourished on the back of something called aetherochemistry, a combination of magic and technology that saw their civilization advance beyond anything in recent history. But with such rapid advancement came luxuries that many people never understood or had, much less the capacity to appreciate. As such, overindulgence in said benefits made the Allagan people not just lax, but numb to the needs and feelings of others. When pushed over the edge, the Allagans were all too willing to abuse their power, torturing others for their own benefit and entertainment. And just when the Allagans couldn't seem to be much worse, they began testing and experimenting on their own people with no regard to ethics or basic principles. The Allagan Empire eventually collapsed under the weight of its own hubris, realizing all too late that the undying leadership they had given all of their rights to were prepared to abuse that trust with malicious intent. How interesting, then, that both societies were prepared to invade other nations in the pursuit of personal gain. The similarities between ancient Allag and Alexandria is harrowing. The writing of Final Fantasy XIV loves to repeat stories, arcs, and themes to hammer home certain thoughts and tropes. And based off of the themes that we've already been exposed to over the course of this MMO's life, it's safe to say that the Alexandria you initially discover within Dawntrail is indeed as horrific as it sounds. But the writers never go out of their way to tell you it is. You, the player, must observe their actions and hopefully remember what has come before. The enslavement of souls, the manipulation of memories, and abuse of its people for entertainment are all things that Alexandria's discovery shared with the worst civilizations in this game's history. The Alexandrians had made themselves all but numb to the reality of life, death, pain, and joy, living only within a perpetual state of immature happiness. This ignorance of reality, or rather, the willful numbing of pain in exchange for pleasure, will eventually destroy them, because they cannot feel the danger that they are in, just like how it obliterated the Allagan Empire, and exposing them to their own selfishness may shatter them, much like how it did to the people living within Eorzea. At first glance, Allag, Eorzea, and even Alexandria would look like amazing places to live and benefit from, but all of them share one thing in common. No matter how grand of a vision their society started as, ignoring the dangers of their choices would steadily corrupt and destroy them. But tell me, my friends, what does reflecting upon these repeating themes within Final Fantasy XIV tell you about the game's story? Did you recognize the flaws within Alexandria's system right away? Or did you only recently see the potential issues with the release of story patches like 7.1? I'm eager to hear your thoughts and feelings down in the comments section below. But as I leave you to ponder the state of the Alexandrians, I wish you well, and until next we meet, stay safe, my friends. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoy my content, it would mean the world to me if I had earned you as a subscriber. We are currently on the road to 50k, and I'd love to have you as part of that journey. I'd also like to take this time to thank my amazing Patreon supporters: Nanima, Amina Viltaria, Slippers, Azkan Hawk, Naria O'Meara, Potato, Seth Rosewood, and Sinalv Bagel. Your support has always meant so much to me and helps to keep the content flowing with ease. If you're interested, there are additional links down in the description to my Discord, X, and other things as well. But until I see you again, I hope you're having an amazing day. Class dismissed.